Hello folks, SimPilot here. Welcome back to Microsoft Flight Simulator. Before we start, I'd like to thank everybody for their extraordinary support that they showed by subscribing to my channel, giving me a thumbs up, or leaving a comment at the comment section of the videos. This is so encouraging, and one more time, thank you guys. I highly appreciate it. It's much appreciated, and I cannot thank you enough. So today your mission is, should you choose to accept it, is to use VOR navigation, which means we will not have a GPS, we will not follow a flight plan, but we will end up at the same destination by following exactly the same route we plotted using our flight planner in the G1000 unit, which is for a GPS flight. We will keep it there as a reference. I'm not going to cheat it, but I will keep it there for you guys to see how close we are following it by using VOR navigation. So you might ask, what is VOR? VOR stands for Very High Frequency Omnidirectional Radio, which is a radio beacon that shoots or transmits radio signals on a circular radial, like pretty much 360 degrees. Okay, and your aircraft's navigation radios capture that signal and allows you to track that signal all the way to the location of that VOR station. And by daisy chaining multiple VOR stations and tracking their course and the frequency, you can exactly follow the same flight plan that we created here, or the one you will create in the future. And there is a very good tool that helps you to do it called SkyVector, and I usually use SkyVector when I am planning VOR flights. So if you guys are interested in seeing a tutorial on how to use SkyVector for flight planning, just leave me a comment down below and we'll take a look at it, and I'll try to make a tutorial on how to do a flight plan using SkyVector. So this is our 5th episode, and I think this is going to be the final episode for G1000 unit. I am planning to step up the game and move to G3000 and turboprop aircraft after this one. So if you don't want to miss the next episode, please don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications. Without further ado, let's jump into the cockpit and I will start explaining what we are going to do. So we are here, and as you see on the right of the screen, right there, this is our flight plan we created for episode 4, which takes us from Echo Delta Lima Papa all the way to Echo Delta Delta Victor. So for VOR, we are not going to use GPS. So if you take a look at here, my navigation source is my nav radio 1, which is VOR 1. So that's what we are going to use to follow the very same flight plan we created. And this is going to stay here for reference, but for not to cheat, I'm going to change the map and change it to maybe just do this and change it so that we cannot see the map. Yeah, I will open this map to show you guys how close we are following that flight plan, and just to show you, but not to cheat, but we will follow the same thing. So how are we going to do this? Couple things we need to do before we start. I already set our altitude again for 3,500 feet for our second waypoint, where we have to be at that altitude, and then we will climb to 5,000 feet like before. So that's already set. On the PFD I set our wind, but we have a couple more things to set here so that we can start tracking. Let's go back and take a look at our charts. If you remember this chart, this is our departure chart, and I have two versions of it. One is this one, which I used on episode 4. This is something I googled and found on the internet. The other one I am using is a service called ChartFox. This is a WhatSim service. So if you are a member of VATSIM, you get access to ChartFox, and they have charts for pretty much everywhere, and it's quite handy, and it has a very user-friendly interface that you can use to go through your taxi layout, taxi charts for airport layout, standard instrument departures for available runways, standard terminal arrival routes, and approach charts as well. So this is what I'm using today. So what we need to note. We need to note couple frequencies. One of them is the pad, which is 108.5. Okay, I'm gonna write it here so that I know what I will be tuning. So taking notes is really important when you are flying VOR, especially the frequencies, and numbering them. Like this is my first one that I will be tracking, and then typing the course or writing the course next to it, which is, as we remember from the last tutorial, going to be 055 on the radial. So I'm gonna put that there. And if you remember last time, after 2.6 nautical miles, we will be making a right turn to 077. So I will put 2.6 here, and then my next one is going to be 077, and we will track that for 5.7 miles. 6 miles, I'm sorry, 5.6 miles. And from there we are taking a right turn to 124, actually not 3. On this chart it's 123, but 124 is what we are going to do to track Warburg. And that frequency, which I will need, 113.7 WRB. This is my second waypoint for VOR navigation, and we will see the distance. I don't need to note that. When we pass this, what we are going to do. So I'll show it in the simulator using the flight plan. If we go back to the plan, there we go. If you see here, there is a waypoint or a VOR station called November India Echo. So that is exactly what we are going to track, because oops, wrong button. I was planning to zoom in, but instead I zoomed out. Sorry about that. The reason being, after Robeg, if you remember, our approach was starting on the last episode, but this VOR beacon is exactly at the same course as Robeg. So if we track this VOR station, that means we are tracking this line, this magenta line here. And when we reach here, we will also track our localizer so that we know when to make that final turn into the runway. For that reason, we need to get the localizer frequency, which is on the approach chart for Hanover, and that's 108.3. So 108.3. This is the localizer. I wrote it down, and the only frequency I'm going to need is this NIE, or November India Echo. How do I find it? Well, if you remember last time, or if you watched the video from start to the end, I showed this menu here. Let me go back. When you don't do anything but start scrolling the inner knob, you go to waypoint, and then you go to auxiliary, and then you go to nearest. And if you use the outer knob, it cycles through nearest NDBs, nearest intersections, nearest airports, and nearest VORs. And we know November India Echo is a VOR station, so press and bring the cursor, and I see the name right here, and November India Echo. So if I go one up, it will give me the frequency 116.5. So this is my third point, 116.5 NIE, and then my fourth point is, as I said before, my localizer. So we need 4 frequencies, and then the names of those, and then the course. So if you check here, it is giving, hopefully giving, it's giving the bearing, not the course. But we know from last flight, if we go back to the approach chart, we are following the course 007 from Robeck, so that's what we need to follow for November India Echo VOR. We need to be on 007 to perfectly align with that line, which will bring us all the way through here. And when we see our localizer is being captured, and I will explain how we make that right turn and when we may make that right turn. But until then, this is information that we need before we even take off from the runway. So let's start setting up our frequencies and setting our PFD to track that data. First things first, we need to go to the PFD screen and we need to put our bearing 1. And on bearing 1, I want to track the Warburg VOR, which is Whiskey Romeo Bravo. So that frequency was 113.7. So 113.7. Oh, that was, yeah, 113.7. Let's put it there. And as you see, now it started to track Warburg. And as you see, now we have our CDI, which is this line, that stands for course deviation indicator. Okay, and when we get close to Warburg, this line will start moving to middle when we make that right turn to 10124. You will see this moving to the middle, and when this forms a perfect line, that means we are perfectly aligned on that line to Warburg, which I can show you here. Let me close that and go back to the map. And actually I can show you here, I don't need to do that. We will be perfectly aligned with this line over here. Okay, so let me close the map. I don't want to cheat. So that's number 1 frequency we are going to track, and from Warburg we know we are going to start tracking November India Echo, which I showed you here. Let me keep the map open so that we know what I'm talking about. This one here, we need to track that one from here to here before we make the final turn. So I need that frequency on the standby so that I can quickly switch between 2 frequencies, and that frequency is 116.5. so 116.5 is our on my standby. I don't move it over here and make it active yet. When we reach Warburg, that's what I'm going to do. Okay, and the course for that was 007, so I already have a note for that. Alright, so nav1 radio is set. So we are going to use the nav2 radio to track our distance from the runway so that we know when to make those turns after our initial departure, like 55 to 77 and 77 to 124. So that I'm going to use nav2 for that. How do I display that information? First, I need to put the frequency of the pad, I believe it was pad, yeah, for the airport we are in right now, which was 108.5. If we go back to the chart and check, 108.5. This is what I'm tracking to track my distance to here and to here for 2.6 and 5.6. I switched that there and it displayed pad, so it's receiving the signal, but I don't see a distance. You might think maybe I'll put it to here, but well, it says no data, and there is a reason for that. This is just showing you your bearing. To receive the DME or distance measuring equipment, let me close that, you need to turn this on, and it's on nav1 showing the distance to Warburg, but that's not what I want. So how do I change it? Actually, you change it from this ADF DME button, and as you see, DME mode nav1. We need to change this to nav2 so that we can track that signal we placed on nav2. And as soon as I change it, if you have noticed it, Now it's displaying the distance from pad VOR station, and this distance is what we are going to track for our departure. Okay, I hope this is not overwhelming so far. Let me know in the comments if this was too complicated. So we have everything set up for our departure. We will depart, we will track this VOR station all the way to 2.6 miles, make a turn to right 77, and then track this for another when we see 5.6 and 5 or 5.7 here, and we'll make a turn to 124. So I'm going to set my autopilot when I'm still on the ground. I want to turn on the heading select mode because I will be using the heading knob to make the turns, and then I want to turn on my flight level change mode on and want to set it to 80 so that I don't need to worry about the throttle. Okay, that's a little bit too much. Okay, 80, we are there. And I also want to set my reference speeds, which I already did, so I have a speed bug. If you remember from last time, I have a speed bug that I set for our climb speed at 80 knots, and I already set the minimums, which I know it is 270 from the departure chart. If you take a look at it, there 267. I rounded it up and entered there for our approach. But I haven't turned it on yet. I will, because I don't want to clutter my view at the moment. Okay, so we are pretty much ready to take off and start tracking this distance, follow our course, make those turns, and as we make those turns you will see this green line moving towards to the middle. Okay, so I think everything is good, mixture looks good, our lights are on. Let's check the flight control surfaces: full left, full right, full forward, full back, left rudder, right rudder, and then toe brakes. We are all good. Release the parking brake and give her some power. Okay, we are moving. So I'm gonna try to keep us at course following 055 as much as I possibly can, but for VOR, if you are off couple degrees, that's not going to be a problem. Okay, V1 is there, rotate, not V1, I'm sorry, V rotate is there. So we are going to track 55 as much as we possibly can, and then I will turn on or engage the autopilot to help us track that perfectly, following our heading out of here. And I'm keeping an eye on the distance, but I haven't passed over that VOR yet, I believe. It is still... Yep, I passed it, so 0.4. I think it's time to engage the autopilot. Let us climb at full power, and we will track that distance until it's 2.6 nautical miles. And remember from last video what I told you: if you are feeling like your aircraft is low on power, I need to turn on this ATC. Just give me a second, guys, let me just cancel this IFR flight. I don't want to deal with ATC.
Langen Center, Cessna Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra Alpha is at 1,400 feet, climbing 5,000 feet. Cessna Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra Alpha Langen Center, continue as planned. Altimeter 29.902.
Thank you guys, but I don't need your service today.
Sierra Alpha climb and maintain 8,000
No, thank you, not 8,000. Oh my gosh, this is taking too long, and I'm gonna miss my turn just because of that. Yeah, cancel that please. Okay, if you remember, if you are lacking power, check your mixture and come back on your mixture, because you're probably choking your engine. Okay, and see that fuel flow gauge right there? It is overflowing right now and choking the engine. It needs to be in between this green line. So if I pull back on throttle and bring it to green, my aircraft will regain power. I think we passed that turning point because I just spoke too much. So I'll just turn us to 77 and keep tracking 5.6. Sorry about that, guys, I just missed it slightly, but we will be okay. I promise we will be okay. So this is going to be a long flight again. I will probably edit the video and cut some parts of it to keep the video at 30 minutes roughly. So after this departure, when we turn to WRB VOR, I will probably cut there and bring you guys back when we are getting close to WRB to explain what we are going to do to make our turn. So we are at 4 nautical miles, 2,500 feet. I think we will be at 35, no problem. I can increase the mixture a little bit and give her more power. Yeah, I think we're fine. Okay, 4.6. We are about to make that turn, and also this needle is tracking Warburg's location, and as you see, this is slowly coming to 124. So we are at 120 at the moment, and when we hit 5.67, this will be showing 124. So this is another way of tracking that VOR station and making sure when you are going to make the turn. And if you really get close, you will see this needle moving. So there is a terminology that's called push the head, pull the tail for VOR navigation. That means you need to push this head to where your course is, which is 124, and pull the tail, which is going to be naturally pulling the tail if you are pushing the head, and that's when you know you have to make that turn. We are at 5.9. Let's make the turn. I spoke too much again. I'm not doing a great job with flying today, but it's okay. So we are turning to 124, and we will adjust our course to 124. This is another important thing. If you want to track that VOR station properly, you need to adjust your course. Your course is not your heading. If you don't adjust your course, this needle is not going to show the right information. I forgot to mention that at the beginning. But now, as you see, we are very closely tracking that signal to Warburg VOR station. This line is slightly to the left. That means I am off course just a little bit to the right. So my airplane is at the right of that line that I showed you on the map. Let me just come back here. This line right here, and if you see, we are perfectly close to that, but a little bit on the right side of it. That means I need to adjust this course and get us back on track by just slightly changing my heading from here to there, like 3 degrees, until this green line comes back to the middle. I can go back to 124 and we will be on course again. So why this is happening and why heading is different than course? Your heading is where your airplane is pointing, relevant to magnetic north on a horizontal radial or 360 degrees. Your course, on the other hand, is your actual direction of travel. If you see, that line is at the middle now, so I'm just adjusting back to 124, and if I bring the map, you should see us right on that line, which we are. Amazing. Okay, so I'll keep the map there, but do not open it. So yeah, this is where your airplane's nose is pointing at. Your course is your direction of travel, and these two might not match at times, and there are number of forces that are in effect on your aircraft, one of them being the wind. So if you see, there is a wind coming from here to here, pushing our aircraft towards left, which means if this wind was a little bit more stronger, this wind was pushing us out of course, and we have to correct for that wind and slightly turn to the right to compensate that push generated by the wind, if that makes sense. So that's why your course is not always your heading. I just wanted to explain this briefly and the differences between those. So now let's go back to what we are doing. We are done with this, so what I want to do is we can put the November India Echo VOR station, which we will be tracking after Warburg, here, to have that in here, because as soon as this starts to display information, that means we are getting close to that station. But at the moment it's not showing anything. It might not show anything too if it's not a DME station, so we don't know it yet. We will know about it when we get there. So how we are going to make that turn? Yeah, I was about to explain that. So we are tracking that second VOR station. Oh, it's displaying the information here, but it's not displaying the distance. But we don't have the needle here. Let me see. So that's there. Okay, we will probably receive some data. So we are getting close to Warburg, 6 miles, and we know if we cannot get a signal, when we hit 0 on Warburg VOR, when we pass over it, we need to turn to 007 to the left, and that's what we are going to do if we cannot get any information here. In the meantime, let's just take a look outside and enjoy the view. We got some miles to go, and I can't tell enough how much amazing the scenery looks in this simulator. That is the sole reason that I started to do tutorials for anybody who wants to do flight simulation and enjoy this beautiful scenery of Microsoft Flight Simulator. You know, X-Plane was not even close to this, with a lot of satellite imagery that I downloaded, and I wasn't able to get anywhere near to this kind of detail. So we are getting close to Warburg. I thought I should have cut the video and, you know, brought you guys back, but looks like that's gonna happen after we make that turn at Warburg, because we're getting close, and I will bring you guys back when we make that turn and start to track this station on our NEV1 radio. Right now, if you see, we are close a little bit off course to the right, so let me just turn right couple degrees and put us back on track and align the needle. Course deviation indicator, this is what it is called, CDI, and this whole compass is called HSI, horizontal situation indicator. So we are back on course, go back to 124, and now we are off to the left a little bit, so let me correct it a little bit more. Let's see. Yep, it's coming back to the middle. We can go back to 124. Now we are perfectly aligned and we are on course again. So we are getting close, and my NEV2 radio is still not receiving any signal. Could it be because of this? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Looks like it's not the reason. But we will figure it out. We are getting close. We should get ready to make that turn, and also we have to adjust our course as well. Although the other way of doing this, and we need to climb to 5,000, that's something I forgot. Let's just do that in the meantime. Flight level change. Not that speed. Just bring it down to 80, please. Yeah. Okay, we are very close, and we should get ready to make that turn here in a minute. I think you will see this, what happened there, needle flipping, because we are super close to Warburg and I was climbing too fast and it lost track of that needle. But now we are slightly off track. Let's just bring that needle back to middle. Now we passed Warburg, I believe, because that needle's flipped, so it's time to make that turn to 007. Yeah, we passed Warburg. That was the reason why we lost the signal. And I just missed that for a second while I was busy with climbing. But we will make that turn to 007 and we will align us back with the course. So now it's time to switch to the other VOR station and November India Echo, and it is time to adjust our course back to 007 so that we can track that VOR station perfectly. 007. Are we going to receive anything? I am still not seeing anything from that VOR station, so that's a little bit discouraging. I don't see anything here. Interesting. No needle. Oh, that's a bummer. And it says no data. We are not receiving any sort of distance. We are not receiving anything. This is not good, but I'm still not going to take a look at the map. What I will do is I will cut the video short here and bring you guys back when we cover some distance and get close to that VOR station, November India Echo. I'll see you in a little bit. Welcome back, guys. I just wanted to bring you guys back for a second because now we started to receive signal from that VOR station. So the reason why were not receiving was we were too far away when we first started to make that turn towards 007, and now I see that we are a little bit off course. So now let's correct our course and put us back on course to align with that line. And now we know where we are going, at least, even if we don't know the distance yet. Let's correct a little bit more. We should see that needle coming towards to the middle as we make the turn. Yeah, because we are too far away, that's not gonna move too fast because of the distance. As you get close, the needle becomes more sensitive. I will put us back on track and bring you guys back when we are getting close to our destination. See you in a little bit. Welcome back. We are getting close to our destination, cruising nicely, and I'll show you where we are right now on the map. We are not perfectly, but we are aligned with our course, and we are traveling towards our destination. So as I said, why we weren't seeing anything was we were too far away to receive a signal. But this was a perfect opportunity to show how you can still navigate and expect to receive signal if you know your course and which direction you need to travel. And this has been a perfect example for that. And one thing I forgot to tell is this small arrow or triangle that shows to the up means we are traveling to that VOR station. If I switch back, because I'm gonna put Warburg on our nav2, and if I change the CDI source to nav2, this arrow is showing that it's 180 degrees opposite direction, which means we are traveling away from it. So this is the difference between these arrows. So let's start discussing how we are going to know when we are going to make that turn into the runway. if we take a look at our approach chart, we know we have to be at 3000 feet, so we should start descending shortly. And then this is our localizer, 108.3, and this is what we need to start tracking. This will tell us when we are going to make that turn. Okay, and let's just put that frequency on our NAV2, 108.3, right, and put that to the standby frequency for our NAV1 radio. Remember from last tutorial, you cannot use your NAV2 for ILS approaches. Your NAV1 is the radio that you need to use to capture the localizer and the glide slope when you make that final turn to the runway. Even the GPS unit in G1000 cannot use the nav radio, or they don't have any communication in between for the GPS to take you down to the runway by capturing the glide slope and localizer. So you have to switch to CDI mode. You have to switch your CDI to VOR1 from GPS if you are using GPS for navigation to capture the localizer and descend into the runway using ILS approach. So let's set our altitude down to 3000 and initiate V-speed mode, and let's just descend like 400 feet per minute. So that will give us enough time, maybe 500 or even more, and I will cut the throttle a little bit just not to overspeed. So how we are going to know when we are going to make the turn? If I switch to my, because I know we are on track pretty much, even if we are off a couple degrees, that's not going to have a huge impact. If I switch to my second CDI source, as you see, the course is already set to 91, which is the course to the runway, so final approach course. On the chart it is showing 90, but I think this is going to be perfectly fine. And as you see, this needle is all the way to the top. When this needle starts to move towards to the middle and gets close, that's when we are going to make our turn, when this arrow becomes a complete arrow with the needle in the middle. So that's how we are going to know when we are going to make that turn. As we get close to that localizer, we should see this needle moving shortly, and that's when we will know that's when we are going to make that turn to 091. That's why we are using the heading select mode, so that changing the CDI source is not going to change anything for us. Okay. One other thing we can do here is we can also switch frequencies and put this to here, because we are going to capture the localizer, and go back to NAV2, I'm sorry, and put the other frequency here, so that we still keep tracking that. Oops, wrong frequency, my bad, sorry. Yeah, okay, so NAV2, and the course, we need to correct this course to 007 to perfectly track it. Without that we won't be able to know if we are still on course, but I need to make this quick because we are very close to the airport. Okay, so as you see, that needle is still there, but you will see it will start moving towards here. Okay, and if we check the map, just to show you guys where we are very close to Dessin. Okay, we are actually almost ready to make that turn. As you see, the needle started to move, so now we need to keep our hand on the heading bar knob, and as we get close we should start making that turn to 91 and start capturing that localizer and adjust our course and put us back on track, because I think we overshoot that a little bit, but it is fine because we can still correct it by just slowing a little bit. Okay, and now we know we are far off to the right, so we should start turning right a little bit to capture that back. And I already started to see the airport there, so I should slow down and start deploying my flaps. Okay, the needle is coming, and now I think at this point, when it gets close, we can initiate our approach mode or turn it on. Okay, let's make the turn 9-1 and make that. And let's take a look out the window. So now we are on localizer. Now it's going to capture that, and you see that glide slope turning to green when it's captured. And we can drop our altitude if we have to, but we don't need to. It should automatically start bringing us down when we capture the glide slope. We are not descending at the moment because we are not on the glide slope yet. That little diamond needs to be, I think, over here in line with this yellow arrow, and that's when we should expect to capture the glide slope and start descending when it gets to the middle. And as you see, it turned to green, and now we started to descend into the runway, which means we need to deploy another level of flaps. Okay, and go to our references, turn on our minimums, and then turn on our glide speed. Okay, so now we are perfectly fine. We should come back on the throttle a little bit to put us back to the glide speed, otherwise we will arrive too fast into the runway. A little bit more. Yeah, the speed is coming down nicely. And if we take a look at the puppy lights, I am seeing 2 reds and 2 whites, so we are perfectly on the glide slope, descending nicely. So that's our climb speed, that's our glide speed, which has a G to state that that's the glide speed bug that we put on the speed tape. So as you see, guys, even without the GPS, you can perfectly navigate by using the old school VOR radios, which have been around since 1940s. Okay, so I think we are at the glide speed now. I should give a little bit more throttle and keep us there. Make the mixture a little bit richer. So that's the other way of adjusting your speed. If you don't want to mess with the throttle, you can use your mixture to feed the engine more fuel to keep you at the desired speed, which now it starts to increase the speed a little bit, so I should cut that back a little bit more and try to keep us at the glide speed. So now we are on the glide slope. We have a little bit of tailwind, that's why we are moving around, a little bit bumpy, but shouldn't be a problem, and we'll see if I can make a better job with landing this aircraft this time, because last time I didn't like my landing. But I think I was too late on turning off the autopilot. Alright guys, as you see, we are perfectly aligned with the runway. We are on our final approach into the runway. Our minimums are set, our altimeter is set, and please do remember when you are doing this yourself, localizer frequency needs to be set to the NEV1 radio to perfectly capture the glide slope and do an ILS landing. So I hope you guys can follow this tutorial and fly the same route with just using the VOR navigation. So let me know in the comments if you try this and successfully bring your aircraft from Paderborn to Hanover. I would love to learn how did it work for you. I will keep recording and I will land the aircraft, but if you want, you have seen this part yesterday on tutorial 4 or episode 4, I'm sorry. You can stop watching here if you don't want to see how terrible I am going to land. Okay, I think we are good, and as you see, because the aircraft is trying to correct the wind, our heading is constantly changing, or it was changing a minute ago, to compensate for the wind, but our course was still staying at 91. So we are getting close. We are still on the glide slope. Speed is dropping, so I should add more power. I think 1500 RPM is a good reference to keep our speed at our glide speed, or maybe 1600, I don't know. I am just playing with it to see where it will put us to 68 knots, and that's I think where we are now. I don't want to go faster, I want to stop there, so slowly and adjusting the throttle, and I don't have the best hardware, so it's sometimes hard for me to keep the throttle at the same level, but hopefully I will get a better joystick in the future, or maybe a joystick and throttle quadrant combo to have more control on the throttle, which I don't have at the moment. But all in all, I think this has been a great tutorial for VOR navigation, and I hope it wasn't too confusing for you guys. Again, if you have any questions, leave me a comment down below. I'll try to respond all comments, and I'll try to answer to your questions as well. So if you don't understood any part of the tutorial, or if you have any questions to ask, maybe I just didn't cover part of it, just let me know and I will answer your question in the comments. I think it is time to disconnect the autopilot and land ourselves without the autopilot by following the puppy lights and the glide slope. So this is the ILS beacon. I should correct us a little bit, because otherwise I don't want to land to the grass, I want to use the runway. And to make these corrections, I'm also using my rudder pedals to, bring us back on track rather than trying to turn. Now I think it is time to cut the power and let her float into the runway nicely while keeping our... Okay, I think this was slightly better than yesterday. But this is going to be it for today's tutorial, episode 5, and I think we are done with G1000 at this point. Next episode, my plan is to use TBM 930 and start doing the same thing like what we did with G1000 and go through the same steps for G3000 this time. If you don't want to miss the next episode, please don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications. I will see you in the next video. Take care, guys.